I want to talk about remembering words, and you can see my notes for the video, but it's one thing to learn a word for the first time. It's another thing to be able to remember it and put it into your long-term memory so that you can recall it or be able to recognize it either many months down the road or even years down the road. So in order to remember a word, you need to review the word. And what that means is you need to come across it again at some period of time after you first encountered it, after the first time you learned it. So the nice thing about programs like Anki or other flashcards programs is that Anki keeps track of all the words that you've put into it, and then has an algorithm to show you the words at different intervals depending on how well you know the words. So I looked at my Anki and I looked at the Anki deck for Arabic. Arabic is a language that I started learning at the beginning of this year, I think roughly around January 1st of 2023. And if I look at my Anki Arabic deck, it says that I have 4,957 words known in the deck, which means that I've learned them, I've come across them at least once in the deck, if not more times. Now, do I actually know all 4,957 words? Probably not. Probably some number of those words, if you were to quiz me on them right now, I would not be able to remember their meaning. However, that's natural. You're going to forget things, and that's why you should review, so that they come up again and you have another chance to be able to learn them. So the point here is that it's hard to review the words properly without help. A lot of people ask me, they say, why do I need Anki? Why can't I just read passages in my textbook? Why can't I just read the newspaper and naturally come across the words again? And you're right, you could do that, and you will learn words, you will remember them, you will recall them. But I think Anki is better because it has that algorithm. And the nice thing about the algorithm is that, yeah, if you're looking at a book, you're just randomly stumbling across the words. And you might see one word one day, and then you might not see it again for a year from now, at which point you probably won't even remember that you saw it the first time. So with a program like Anki, it'll show it to you maybe in a 4-day interval, 12-day interval, 20-day interval. I'm just making that up, but it gets longer and longer and longer, so that it puts that at just the right point where you're about to forget it, and then refreshes it in your memory so that you can remember it. Now, the other powerful thing for remembering words is to get real experience. And what this means is you want to get as close as possible to the real world and using the words in the real world as you can. And to do that, you might want to consider role-playing, for example, using the words in a conversation, reading a book that has the words, watching a TV show, a movie, listening to music. And the reason why this is good is because it creates connections to the real world. It's one thing to be looking at a book and looking at a list of vocabulary and seeing text on a page. It's another thing to be in a live conversation where someone is asking you about your vacation. And so then you remember all of the vocabulary related to vacation and the words come up for you. And that's going to further reinforce the words in your memory, because now you have all these real life, real world experiences attached to the words and the vocabulary. This is the reason why mnemonics also work. It's that they create connections to the words almost in an abstract way, because you're finding clever connections or images or silly images that make it so that you have some form of tie or connection between the foreign language word, the sounds of the foreign language word, and the meaning of the word. And yeah, you know, this is good because if you're able to use the words in the real world, then this is far better than, say, using Duolingo and ordering words in a sentence on the screen by using your finger. If you only use Duolingo, you might find that you get very good at Duolingo. You might find that you're able to put the words correctly in the sentence, and you might be able to do flashcards. You might get really good at that, but then when it comes to a real life experience where maybe you're on the street and someone comes up to you and asks you, I don't know, a question about what the time is or where something is, or some other question, you'll find that you're unable to recall the information because you've only practiced, moving your finger around on a phone screen. So this is another reason why you want to get real world practice in. And if you can't get real world practice in, then you want to get as close as possible to that. That's why I suggest role playing. You can go into your mind and imagine the scenario, imagine the situation, and then think of all the words that would come up. Think of all the vocabulary that you would want to use in an imagined scenario or conversation that you have. Basically, you want to practice for what you are actually learning the language for. If you're learning the language to read books, then you want to read a lot of books. If you want to be able to have conversations with foreign language speakers, then yeah, you should have a lot of conversations with native speakers or in the language. So another point I want to make is that you should focus on the joy of what you like to do. It's not about obtaining a certain number of words that you've remembered or that you have in your Anki deck. The point is to focus in on the enjoyments now of learning the words themselves and that process of learning itself. Because if you can get into that, then it doesn't even really matter what your goal is. You'll find that if you can focus in on the joy of learning the words, then you will get far further than you would have if you had had some goal, say, oh, I want to learn 5,000 words this year. I think the reason why this is because when I used to have goals like this, I would say, oh, I want to learn 5,000 words in the year. But then I would look and I would say, wait, I only know 200 words. And this is so difficult. I'm not anywhere close to 5,000 words. How am I ever going to get to 5,000 words? And that negative feeling would impress itself on my mind to the point where I began to associate that negative feeling with learning words, with the language. And your mind doesn't want to do negative things. It doesn't want to do things that make you feel bad. So your mind will subconsciously find a way to get you to stop. Either something will come up in your life or you'll conveniently forget, and then you will have missed a day or two, then you'll miss a few more days, and then before you know it, you say, oh, I've fallen off the horse, I'll get back on next week or next month when things have slowed down in my life. But you never end up doing it. So the point is, you want to connect that positive emotion, that positive feeling to learning the words. And you can do that by finding the joy in learning the words. If you're the type of person that doesn't like flashcards, then I do not recommend you do Anki. Although I think Anki is great, I love the algorithm, it works for me. If you don't like to do flashcards because maybe you have a kind of trauma from the past when you're in school and you're forced to use flashcards, and so you get triggered when you use Anki or something like this, then yeah, definitely do not use Anki. Instead, you should find other ways to learn the words. You can do this by some of the methods I mentioned before. You can try to create scenarios. You can write out imagined conversations using the vocabulary. You can go to a language tutor and provide them with a list of words and tell them, hey, I want to practice using these words. Let's go over them. Let's have a conversation together using as many of these words as possible. Or hey, let's try making example sentences with these words. Whatever you can do that you like, that's going to make a positive feeling and emotion that you can connect to learning the vocabulary, that's what's going to make you continue to learn the words. And if you can focus in on that positive feeling, then of course you'll want to continue because it feels good. So that's my recommendation to you, is finds a way that propels you forward through the positive emotion. And that's how I remember words. I review them. I use Anki and the algorithm to bring them up at timed intervals. And over enough time, I learn more and more words. And then one day I wake up and I look at my Anki flashcard deck and I see that I learned 4,957 Arabic words in the year 2023. Okay, so I hope that helps you. Good luck on remembering the words. Thank you so much.